You'll build a Uniswap Blockchain Web 3.0 app with Next.js. You'll style it using Tailwind CSS. In this app, I'll also show you how to create your own smart contracts using Solidity. With the smart contract that you will create, you will send your own token to any wallet that you want. We'll add authentication to the app using MetaMask, and we will use Sanity.io as our database to store all the users and all of their transactions. You'll be able to view and confirm all of these transactions over on Etherscan to confirm that they are 100% real. You'll also learn how to use GROQ and Sanity's API to actually retrieve your data. We'll be using the Rinkeby test network, which is built on the Ethereum blockchain. We'll then deploy this app using Vercel and host your Uniswap Web 3.0 blockchain app on the internet. By the way, I just adopted 2 new kittens, and if you smash the like button and turn it blue, I'll show them to you. I'm waiting. Now that you've smashed the like button and turned it blue, here are my beautiful kittens. With that said, let's just go right ahead and demo this app. All right, so I just got to this app. You can see that I'm on the deployed link. This is not the actual Uniswap app, right? This is ours. Now I'm gonna hit connect wallet over here. Now that I'm here, I can choose whichever wallet I want. So I'm gonna connect with this wallet right now. Here, I'm gonna hit next. I'm gonna hit connect. So now my app is connected to that wallet, and you can see it's actually telling me that right over there at the top. Okay, boom, right there. Now at the bottom, you can actually see it's showing me my history of transactions that I've done. So it's like, hey, you did a transaction at 1:56 p.m. and another one at 1:36 p.m. I can go and verify these two, but let's just go ahead here and now send. I'm going to send about 0.1 ETH, and I'll send it to my other wallet. So I'll go and grab the URL or the code, the address for that wallet, paste it here, and I'll say confirm. Boom, look at that. The MetaMask pops up, asks for a confirmation. Let's hit confirm. It opens up again just to confirm the gas fee. Let's hit confirm. We now have a modal that shows us visually that we're waiting for this progress to be completed. And I'll show you how to do all of this, right? How to put the modal, how to add a loader in this app as well. And then as soon as that transaction is done, what you're going to see is at the bottom, it'll actually pop up. Boom, look at that. As soon as it got done, over here, we see 2:28 p.m. The transaction got done. And now that it got done, I can also confirm with my own database that it got done. So for example, let's look at this address here, 0x88. If I go to my database here, you can see that a new user was created inside of my database, and I click that user. Here is the wallet address of that user, and it can show me that that user has 3 transactions. If I go back, boom, I can see those three transactions right there. And if I click into these transactions, you can see that it's saying there was a transaction made at 14:28, which is essentially 2:28 p.m. Currently, my time is 2:29 p.m. and it was for 0.01. So our app is up and running, showing the history of the transactions. I can send money around. It looks exactly like the Uniswap app. With that said, if you're excited, I'm excited. Let's just jump and start coding this thing up. Now, one last thing I do want to say, which is super cool, is I'm doing a crypto giveaway. So I'm going to be giving away $100 worth of Ethereum to one of you. But here's what you have to do if you want to actually participate in that. So first of all, I want you to commit that you're going to be building this app. If you commit, you're way more likely to actually get done and actually do it, instead of most of the people who just say they're going to build the app, never really do it. If you want to commit, here's what I need you to do. Go to Twitter, screenshot this current page right now, okay, with my face and the app and the code right there. Go to Twitter, and I want you to write down that you are committing. So literally say, I'm committing to building the Uniswap clone with Clever Kazi, okay? I want you to say that, tag me in it, so do @CleverKazi, and I want you to tag our sponsor @Sanity and tag Next.js or Vercel, because that's where we're going to be deploying it to. So make sure that you tag all of those and then just put your wallet address underneath there. So for those of you who do that, you're not only showing that you're committing, not only more likely to succeed and build this app out, but 3, one of you is going to get $100 worth of Ethereum sent to you to that address. So let's freaking do it, guys. It's going to be awesome. I'm super excited. And with that said, no more talking. Let's just start coding. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to go into my GitHub folder, and I'm going to create a new folder for this. So let's just call it Uniswap clone. I'm going to go inside of my Uniswap clone, and now I'm just going to say yarn create next app, and I'm going to do with Tailwind CSS. I want to essentially create a folder for this. So we're just going to call it our client. So the architecture that I'm using, and a huge shout out to JavaScript Mastery. And in the video where he goes ahead and creates his project called Crypt, that was really awesome. So in terms of the Solidity contract, a lot of that is inspired by JavaScript Mastery. So again, huge shout out. We'll link his GitHub repo and also his YouTube channel. You can check it out. He makes great content on there. And so the folder structure I'm using is also similar to JavaScript Mastery because it just makes so much sense. So again, now we have this installed. Now let's go ahead inside of this. So let's actually look. So we're going to have one folder for our client. We're going to have another one, and this is going to be our studio folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that now. We're going to need that for later. And then we're going to need one for our smart contract. All right. So let's go ahead, ls. And I have these 3 folders. And the folder that we're going to open up inside of our Visual Studio Code will be this one right here, the Uniswap clone. So let's go ahead and do code period. So I open this up in my Visual Studio Code. And once this opens up, I'll bring that over. So let's go right there. Cool. As you can see, I have 3 folders right here, right? Our Next.js app is going to go in there. The smart contract will hold everything about Solidity. And then our studio will be everything about Sanity. So let's go inside of our client, and I'm going to go inside of pages, and here's our index file. And let's just basically open this up. Let's cd into our client here. And then we're going to say yarn dev. So this will open up on localhost 3000 right there. And there we go. You can see that it's now open on our localhost, and we can see it. All right. So now that we have this app up and running on our local host, the next thing I want you to do is these folders, right? So if you haven't created these folders from the command line, go ahead and create them now. Okay. This is where your app is going to go. This is where your database stuff is going to go. And this is where the rest of it is going to go. So now what I want to do is I want to go inside of my studio, and I want to actually install my Sanity client. Now, this is a very important part. So what we're going to do, if you don't have Sanity installed, what you're going to do is you're going to do npm install Sanity CLI, just like this. So you're going to make sure you hit that and run it. Now, I already have Sanity installed, so I don't need to hit enter, but you might need to hit enter. So go ahead and install that. Now, here's the next really important command you're going to need to write. So you're going to need to do sanity init -- coupon clever programmer. This is very important that you actually do that, because it's going to set you up with Sanity's best setup that's completely free. So make sure you hit enter on this and install it. So it should say something along the lines of coupon clever programmer validated, and that means you're good to go. Now notice that for me here it says looks like you already have a Sanity account. Sweet. So you might not have a Sanity account. So make sure that you go ahead and create a Sanity account. There will be a link in the description below of this YouTube video that'll link you to Sanity URL. Simply go ahead to this link over here and click it. And once you're on here, look, it'll show you that this plan includes 200,000 API requests, 1 million API CDN requests, and 20 gigabytes of bandwidth. And all of this is actually free. So this is especially for you if you're a Clever Programmer subscriber. These are the commands that you're going to need to do to install the things that we've just shown you, and then hit get started and basically just create an account. Again, all of that is going to be completely free. Oh, and one other really important part of the tutorial, you see that button right there? Yeah, just go ahead and turn that white, and now your app will work perfectly. All right, now let's do our entire Sanity setup. So it's asking, what do you want to name this project? We're going to say Uniswap Blockchain App. So let's just hit enter and let's see what happens. Use the default dataset configuration. Yes. And now it's creating a dataset for you. And for the output path, yes, this is the path that we want it to be in. So I'm already in my studio folder. So make sure you're in your studio folder here. And this is the path that it should be showing you. Let's hit enter. And then for the schema, we're actually going to choose the clean project with no predefined schemas. Let's hit enter on this. And then it should basically tell you that it's actually resolving all of this. And then once this is installed, then all we have to do is just set up our schemas, and then we will be done with our Sanity setup of this app. And then we're ready to kind of get started coding and building this thing up. All right, so you should see success now what? And that means you are good to go. So once I click inside of my studio here, I'll be able to see, you should see all of these files in there. That's what we just installed. The things that we're going to need to update here are our schemas, and these schemas are going to keep track of the user transactions and as well as the user schema. Here is what this basically means. So inside of this is my deployed app. So if you look in here, I have transactions. That's just a history of every single transaction that ever took place. I also have my users table over here, and this has all of my users. Now, all of these transactions here are associated with users, like so. And so, for example, you can see that this user has 3 transactions, right? So this is connected to that table. So to basically have a schema like that's interrelated, we're going to need to create our schemas in Sanity that represents this structure. So we're going to create a new file, and it's going to be called transaction schema.js. And then we'll create another file, and this one is going to be called user schema.js, just like that. And let's build out what one transaction looks like. All right, so the first thing I'm going to build is the transaction schema. So what does one transaction actually look like? So it holds information about your from wallet address, which wallet you're sending to, the amount that you're sending, the time that you've made that transaction happen, the transaction hash, which is the proof, verifiable proof from the blockchain that actually took place, and then which user is that particular transaction referencing. So let's go ahead and get started on it. So let's create our transaction schema. We're going to call it transactions. The title will be transactions with a capital T. That's why you're getting a capital T right there. It'll be of type document, and then inside of it, we'll create fields. So fields are everything that's right there. Inside of these fields, we're going to have name, which is going to be a transaction hash, and the title is going to be transaction hash, just like this. So that's this field right over here. It's of type string. Let's create another field. This one is going to be our from address. And again, this is going to be a type string as well. So title is going to be from wallet address, and the type is string. Now let's create another field. Now you're starting to get the idea of how we're creating these fields. It's going to be to address, but the name of it is going to be to parentheses wallet address, just like this. Type is string. Let's create another field. Amount, title is amount with a capital A. And then this one is going to be like a number, right? It's a type number because this is not necessarily a string. And then we'll create timestamp. Title is timestamp, and type of this is going to be date time, because here you have date and here you have time. And then the last one is also going to be a string. So boom, this is all done here. And now we're going to move on to creating our user schema actually. All right, now the schema we're going to create is for our users right here. So let's go in here, and this is the schema that we're going to create. So users, but what does one user represent, and what are all the fields they have? So here a user has how many fields? 1, 2, 3. So I got 3 fields right there. Type string, string, and then this is actually not type string. This is actually a type reference. So we need to create this structure here. So let's define our user schema. Name of it is users, and we'll title it users, and it's a type document because this is an entire document. Here are the fields that it's going to have. The first field is going to be address. It's going to be titled wallet address of type string. Then we have our username. It's going to be called username, and it's going to be of type string. And then lastly, we're going to have our transactions. Title is going to be transactions. And the last part is actually the most interesting part because it's a reference. You're going to say type of it is array. And we're going to say of, we're going to create an array. And then it's going to be an array of objects. Okay, so array of one object in this case. Now, type of it is going to be reference. And then we're going to say to, what is it related to? And it's going to be related to type transactions. Doing that just created a relationship between users and transactions. And basically it's saying that inside of users, this transaction right here is actually part of the transactions table in there. So super interesting actually how that works. Now let's go into our schema, and all we need to do is actually connect these two tables that we've created. So I'm going to go inside in line 14. I'm going to hit enter, and we're going to concat with the following two. So we're going to say user schema and transaction schema, and make sure that from the top you import both user schema and transaction schema, and we're using them right over here. Simply hit save. And now in order to be able to see this, you can actually whip up your own Sanity Studio locally and take a look at this. So let's try it. Let's try doing Sanity start inside of my studio folder right here. And let's see what happens. So what it's going to do is it's going to compile these files that it's seeing here and build out the schema. And once it builds out the schema, it's going to let you go to a local host and take a look at it. So localhost is HTTP localhost:3333. Okay, let's go to it. And I'm going to sign in with my GitHub. You can sign in with whatever you want. You could sign in with your Google account as well. That's totally fine. And I have my schema actually. So I can see users right there, and I can see transactions right here. Let's go inside, and nothing is there yet. Let's go in transactions. Nothing is there yet. However, if I go into transactions, right, let's go inside of my transactions and hit edit. Watch this. I have all of these fields right here. So my database part is very, very quickly actually done thanks to Sanity. If I go to this here, and let's say I change this transaction hash to transaction potatoes, and let's put an emoji of a potato. I actually don't know if emojis will work or not, but here you go. You have transaction potatoes. So you can see that it's super simple how it works. And if I go into my users and I click here, right, on one of these documents and hit edit, you can see I have my wallet address, my username, and interestingly enough, right, for transactions, type of transactions, boom, and now I can just hit item and then reference a particular transaction item here. So, and then vice versa, if I go to my transactions and click here, by the way, this field here is not necessary, even in my deployed version. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove this from my actual deployed version. And in the version that we're building on our localhost 3333, yeah, you shouldn't even have the user reference. So you should be good to go. And there, I just removed it from my deployed version too. So it shouldn't be there anymore. All right, so now let's go ahead and start working on the front end of our app. Temporarily, we're done with our studio and Sanity stuff. Let's go to our client. And I'm going to go inside of pages. We'll click index.tsx. And don't let this phrase TSX freak you out. It is just JavaScript. It's TypeScript, but with TypeScript includes JavaScript inside of it. So even if you literally just wrote regular JavaScript, it'll run like a regular JavaScript file. You'll be fine. And if you want to literally change that to a .js, you can. But as we go on, I might show you some TypeScript as well. So you can leave it like this. That's fine. All right. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to basically remove everything inside of this div. So you should just have this div. Let's go to our local host. So it should look, your app should be looking like this right now, right? With nothing there, just empty. And then what we're going to do is, so we're going to add some styling here. And for this styling, I'm going to create a wrapper. And inside of this wrapper, we're going to give it a screen height, a max height, a min height, and then a widescreen or, a horizontal width, right? Width and height. So that will give it a background color, which is kind of like this dark color that Uniswap will have. We'll make the text white. We'll make the select none, and we'll make it flexbox enabled. Make the flexbox go in a column. So flex column, and then justify in between. So that's what my wrapper is. Now I'm going to replace all of this here with the following. Now I can simply just do class name equals style.wrapper. Okay, so I'm pulling it from here. This is something I've been recently liking doing styling like this. It kind of reminds me of React Native, but then combining Tailwind with it. So it's kind of a really nice touch. And I have kind of stopped using styled components. I don't like them. For a couple of reasons, and if you want, I'll make a video on it at some point. But yeah, there you go. So I think this should be good for now. So inside of here, let's go ahead and make a H2 and say hello. And let's do one that says bye. All right, and check it out. And boom, there you go, right? you can see that my hello is showing up here and my bye is showing up right there. If I added a third thing, that would show up right in the middle. So this is kind of how I want it, because if I look at my Uniswap app, you know, it has like nice distancing from everything. So that's how I want this app to be. So this first H2, this is going to be like my header. All right. In here, I'm going to have my main. And then in here, I'm going to have my transaction history. So we'll work on these components. The first component we're going to work on is going to be our header component. So let's get to work on that. So inside of my client, I'm going to create a new folder. We're going to call it components, just like this. And then inside of my components, I will go ahead and create a new file. It will be called header.js. All right, so let's work on the header now. So I'll do RAFCE, hit tab. It'll autocomplete and give me this stuff. This is helpful. All right, now before we continue, we're gonna need a couple of logos. So for example, we're gonna need this logo and this Uniswap logo right over here. I'm going to create a assets folder at the client level. So I'm just gonna say assets. And inside of my assets, I'm just gonna put 3 things in there. So those 3 things are gonna be these: my ETH PNG, my ETH currency, and then my Uniswap. We will link you guys all of these in the description below. You should be able to go and get them. Let's go ahead and just get this to show up. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say header. Let's go to our index and replace this here with our component header. Let's go back to our app here, export default. That's perfect. I just had to replace this index.tsx with JS so it could like read these other files. And now when I do R, it gives me the ability to auto import. And there we go. I did header at the top, and boom. Let's go back inside of our header and I will say header, all caps. And it did indeed change. So this component is now showing up. Perfect. All right, and now while we're at it, let's go ahead and let's also install React icons. So I'm gonna say yarn add react-icons like this, because we're gonna need these. Whoops, we actually installed them in the wrong folder. So let's get outside of Studio. Let's go inside of our client, and this is where we need to install it. So let's go yarn add react-icons, just like that, hit enter, and let the installation finish. All right, so we're gonna build this header component from scratch just so you can see how it gets built out, okay? At the top, we're gonna import React, useState, and useEffect because you're gonna need access to these. You're gonna need access to image. Let's get all of our icons. We will get all of our assets from the assets folder, like the ETH logo and the Uniswap logo, because you're gonna need that. And then I'm going to create this style component. I'll keep it empty for now. We'll do our styling at the end so you can see what all of the styling does. We're going to need to keep track of one of the states. So for example, when I go here, this is my built app, right? So when I click pool or vote, do you see how it changes with vote and pool and swap? So we're going to need to keep track of that state. So let's go ahead and keep track of it. So we're going to say selected nav, and then we're going to say set selected nav. And in the start is just going to be the swap. It's going to just be this guy right over here. Okay, that's going to be the default. All right, and then we're going to return. So this is what we'll do. So right now, this is all you should be seeing on your app. Your app should be kind of working. And all these wrappers and everything here, we're going to style that in a second. So I'm going to create a div. Inside of that, I'm going to have my header logo, and I'm going to put my logo in there. So now you should be seeing this logo right there. All right, height of 40, width of 40. Then we're going to have our nav. And then inside of that, we're going to have nav items container. All right. We're going to have another div, and we're going to have we're going to put swap there. So this is now we're creating the container for this. And then on click, it'll allow you to change which one you're selecting. So that's what that's doing. And here's how we're going to be doing it. So our class name is going to be a template literal, and it's going to be style nav item. And then this class name that it chooses here is going to be based on which one we've selected. All right, then we're going to have pool. So what happens if you click on, for example, pool or vote? So that's what we're doing here. So now I'm going to have one for pool, and we're going to have similar logic in there. And then we're going to have one for vote with similar logic in there. And then we're going to have one for the final one, which is this charts. And it's an A tag because when I click charts, it actually pops open a new page and takes me to this right over here. So let's go back. And for this, we're going to have a nav item and it's going to have an arrow pointing up. So it's going to be this guy right there. And it's just going to say the word charts. Now, if I click it, it's a link. See, already taking me somewhere else. Now we're going to have a buttons container, and this buttons container is going to be for all of these guys right there. All right. So in here, I'm going to have a button with the button padding, and then we're going to have a button icon container. So we're going to put the icon in there. So here we're going to have the ETH logo inside of this. So for example, it's going to be this guy right there. And then it's going to say Ethereum inside of that button. Then we're going to have another button, okay, and it's going to have this pointing down arrow. So if I go here, see this pointing down arrow right there. So I have this one big button, ETH logo goes in there, that arrow goes in there. And then I'm going to need another button, this one right here, and then another button to put the 3 dots in there. So I'm going to need my connect wallet button. So for example, when I go here, and if let's say I'm not connected, right? So let's say I log out here. Let's go to the one that's connected, and then I'm going to go to connected sites and disconnect here. So now when I refresh, watch what happens. Boom, it says connect wallet. So by default, that connect wallet should be there. So on click, it should run a connect wallet function, which we have not created yet, but we will. It's going to have the connect wallet styling, and we're going to give it this accent. Okay, so it's going to have that like a little blue accent, and it's going to say connect wallet. So right now, when I ran it, of course, it doesn't work. It breaks for now. We're going to need another button, and this is going to be the 3 dots, just like we had talked about, right? I got my 3 dots right there. So in terms of the buttons, now we're good with the buttons. All right, so now let's go ahead and let's get to styling this thing. All right, so let's do this. Let's add some styling now. So let's add a wrapper around all of this, and we'll give it padding in every direction. We'll make the screen wide. We'll make it flexbox enabled, so it's in a row instead of like columns, because that's what we want here. Let's justify in between. So now we have spacing going around, which is super nice. We will, and then make them center aligned. So then everything is nice and center aligned. So our wrapper is great. Now let's just fix our logo here a little bit. So basically we're pushing everything away from the logo. Let's go ahead and start working on our nav now. So we'll make it flex 1, so it takes up all of this space here. We'll make it flexbox, so it's going in a row, and then we'll justify and center align everything. Okay, let's put a container around our nav items. So here now, swap pool vote charts has a nice container, and then between each of these items, we're gonna go ahead and put distance in between each. Now, if you're wondering where all the rounded 3XLs are coming from, or like this rounded thing right here, right, this is where it's coming from. Now we're going to need to make sure that each of them has a active color. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add in an active nav item. So now take a look. Swap has that active color. And in Tailwind, if you want to give a specific color, this is how you can do it. We're going to put a buttons container around it. We're going to put all the buttons in a container. So these guys right here. All right. And then we're going to style our buttons to be a specific way. So now they're looking much nicer. Let's give buttons some padding. Let's add in a text container for these buttons. All right. And then let's add in a button icon container. So now the buttons look even better, and now they have icons inside. And then last but not least, let's add an accent so our connect wallet is looking good. So if you want to see all my styling, here you go. I'll zoom out as well so you can see it all on the same screen. If you want to pause it and you want to copy it, go ahead. You can do that. Not a problem. But that's all the styling for this page all in one place. So that's why I kind of like this Tailwind and then Tailwind CSS and then just using style like this. And then the rest of it, you should have it just like this. With that said, we are currently done with the header. Let's move on to our main section and work on adding this form right here that we have in the middle. Let's go. All right, now let's go ahead and work on main, which is going to be right there, the form looking thing. Cool. So inside of my components, I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be called main.js. Now, before I start writing too much in here, let's go back to our header, or sorry, actually, let's go back to our index. All right. And in our index, I'm going to replace this here with main. And let's go ahead and import main. So I'm going to say main from main, just like that. So now it's going to error out, but that is totally all right. So let's get to work on making our main page. So let's get our image from Next. Let's get a couple of icons that we're going to need. Let's get our ETH logo. I'm going to get all of our styling in here. So I will zoom out. So if you want to screenshot this, you can. Goes on forever, kind of. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on the styling, guys, because then we're never going to get to the Solidity parts and we're never going to get to building this app out. Let's export our main function and let's create our main function, okay? And then inside of here, we're going to create a wrapper. Let's go like this so we can see it. And then inside of that wrapper, I'm going to have my content. This is where all of my content will go. So you can already start to see this form right there. Inside of that, I'm going to have my form header. We're going to write the word swap in there, just like this. And then we're going to have another div inside of it that's going to basically contain this cogwheel right here. Then we need our prop container. So let's put our input in there. So boom, our input looks real nice here. If you're wondering what this pattern is, if you go on W3 Schools, the pattern attribute specifies a regular expression that the input element's value is checked against on form submission. All right, so cool little hack that you can do to before the form submits, it just checks if this pattern matches, aka if this in here is actually a number. And this handle change function, don't worry, we will work on that next. Let's just keep building this out for now. All right, then I'm going to need my currency selector div. Inside of it, it's going to have currency selector content and currency selector icon. And boom, there we go. So that's what that looks like. All right, and inside of that, I'm going to have my currency selector ticker. So I have my ETH right there. And then we're going to put a drop down arrow next to it to show that you could click it and kind of go through a drop down. All right, so let's keep going on this. I'm going to need another container. Inside of it, I'm going to put another input, just like this one. And you can see my placeholder is basically telling you that it expects some type of address, right? And then we're going to add a button that's going to say confirm. And then the styling is coming from our confirm button. So when you hit confirm on this, we're going to handle submit. So these handle change and handle submit functions, we're going to work on and make sure we have them completed. So instead of in terms of making our main here, we're done. So now we have our header completed and we have our main completed. Next thing we're going to do is now we're going to try to make our wallet work. So let's go ahead and do that shortly. All right, so now to make the wallet work, we have to start doing some big boy and big girl JavaScript stuff. So let's get into that. What we're going to do is at the global level, the client level, we're going to create a new folder and it's going to be called context because we're going to use the context library to essentially lift the state up. Because in React, right, you have all these components. So let's say you have your main.js here, you have your like header right there, and then you have your actual app right here. You know, if you put your component inside of your main.js right there, well, your app does not have access to it, and neither does this guy. Doesn't have access to it either. So you can only pass this component down, but you can't pass it this way, and you can't pass it up. So that's a problem. So normally what you have to do is go, okay, we're going to put all of our state in our index or app folder, like our main folder, and then everything will have access to it. But that's kind of like clunky and weird, and you got to put all the state in this one file, and that one file becomes massive. And it's still not the right way to do it because then you got to prop drill. So if there's like multiple components here, you got to keep prop drilling. So instead, what people use is something called like Redux. And why they use it is because you essentially get this global container, global bucket. You keep throwing all the crap in here. And then whenever anybody needs the crap, they just put their hands in there and pick it up just like that. So super easy. But instead of using Redux, because it's weird and complicated, we're going to use the context API. Make sense? All right, let's go. Boom. So I created my context folder. Inside of here, we're going to create transaction context. Again, shout out to JavaScript Mastery for this way of using context and then using contracts in there as well. So, you know, a bunch of it was inspired by him. He crushed it again. So I want to give him a shout out. Let's now start working on this. All right, so the first thing I'm going to import React. All right, and we're going to get useState and useEffect because, well, we'll need access to both of these. Let's go ahead and export a const, which is going to be our transaction context. And we're just going to do react.create context, just like this. So this is the thing we're exporting, and this is what's actually going to be creating the context that we need. Essentially creating that little bucket that I was talking about, the global level bucket, and then the whole app can have access to the state. All right, so one interesting thing I want to show you here is let's go inspect, right? Because we're going to work on our wallet soon. So in here, if I hit console, now let's go window.ethereum, and it's pulling all of this information. It only does that if you have MetaMask installed. So make sure you have MetaMask and the Chrome extension for it installed. So it's already pulling this. If I didn't have it, it would not work. So now I can ask it questions like, is that MetaMask? And it can actually tell you if that's true or not. So window.ethereum is an interesting one. So we're going to use that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, I'm going to create this and I'm going to say let ETH. And then what I'm going to say is I'm going to say if type of window is not undefined. So this is going to be a not undefined. And then we're going to just say let ETH be window.ethereum. So then we're just going to pass around ETH, and that's going to essentially represent window.eth. Now we're going to create a function that allows you to connect your MetaMask. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go const connect wallet, and then I'm going to basically say MetaMask. And by default, let's have it be ETH. And then we're basically going to say try the following. If there is no MetaMask, then return alert, please install MetaMask, just like that. Otherwise, we're going to do the following. We're going to say await metamask.request, and then we're going to pass it in a method, and that method is going to be ETH_request accounts. So this is going to do that little pop-up thing that happens when you click connect wallet and this pop-up thing happens. This is when you call the method request accounts. And then we're basically going to say set current account to be account of 0. Now you might be wondering, hey, where is this set current accounts thing we're doing? Not a problem. You just simply go ahead at the top and we'll create this state so we can keep track of it. So at the global level, the main component that we want to extract from here is actually our provider. That's what we're doing this whole thing for. Here's what we want to do. Let's go up at the top, and you could even put it all the way at the top, or you could put it right here. That's totally fine. But basically we're going to say const transaction provider, and it's going to take in children. And then in here, I'm basically going to go, so current account, set current account, and in the start, we'll just have it be empty, just like this, nothing. And then I'm going to take this set connect wallet function. I'm going to put it, let's go right there. I'm going to put this inside of my transaction provider, okay, just like that. Current account, set current account. And then what we want to do, we want to catch. So I'll say catch and pass it the error, whatever error that I get, and we'll just log, we'll basically say console.error, we'll log the error, and then we'll throw a new exception. So we'll say error, no Ethereum object. Now here, let's go ahead and say export const, because we want to export this so we can actually use it inside of our entire app. All right, so at the end, we want to return our provider. So I'm going to say return, and we want to actually go transaction context.provider. So this is coming from our context that we created right up here. So transaction context.provider, that's what we're going to return. And let's go ahead like this. And then in between this, we want to say is value. And then we want to say what we want to actually return. So we'll return our current account. That's fine. And then the next thing we'll return is our connect wallet function. All right, now let's remove this angle bracket right there. And what we'll do is we'll put that here, right? So just like that, all right? And in between this, we're gonna pass in the children, just like this. So this is what your transaction context that provider will look like. Value, children. Make sure that you open and close the angle brackets. So at a high level, what this is doing here is it's creating that global bucket and throwing current account in there and connect wallet in there. So then the rest of our app and any of our components can have access to those functions or those state variables. Now what we need to do is let's go to our _app file, and I'll call this .js. And in here, we need to wrap our entire app. So I don't need this props here, and I don't need to say props right there. Let's just go like this. And I'm going to say import transaction provider from context/transaction context. So there we go. And now we're going to wrap this thing inside of that. So I'm going to go right there, and we'll go transaction provider, and boom. And now there's this error that's happening. So we're just going to do this and remove that semicolon. Boom, there we go. And so this now becomes the children. And all of these children will get access to the transaction provider, the global store that has methods like current account and connect wallet. Now, in order to use this, let's go to our header component. All right. And we're going to basically bring in our transaction context from context/transaction context. So basically we're bringing this from right there inside of our header component. Now, right over here, we're just going to destructure that from the context that we created. So I'm basically going to say const connect wallet and current account. And we're going to say use context, and we're going to say transaction context. Now, use context is a React hook, and we need to actually bring that from React. So let's go up top and let's also import use context just like this. There we go. So now we got access to, okay, let's go back. Current account, yes. And current account, yes. Perfect. Now, just to see we have access to these, let's just go ahead and say console log, and I'll just say connect wallet, and we'll say current account. So let's just go ahead and try that. Let's see what we get. All right, so now that I'll refresh here on my localhost 3000, and at the bottom, what you should see is something called an object, or you should see this thing here, and look at this, right? It says current account is undefined and connect wallet is a function. And that makes sense because connect wallet indeed is a function that I created. So that's perfect. And current account that we have right here is undefined. So that makes sense. So that means all the global stuff that we created, we're actually getting access to it. So let's just say I wanted to create a random thing, right? Funny message. And instead of saying, you suck, we just created this funny message. I could just pass that down right here. Funny message, and then I can like destructure it from here and say funny message, and then we can go right there and say funny message. And now let's refresh, and you can see I'm getting the funny message, you suck. So whatever is inside of my context now is coming into my header and everywhere else that I want to go. So you can see how context API is so easy and so much nicer to use, honestly, than any of that Redux garbage. So just use context API. It's way better for most things. So I'm going to obviously go ahead and undo all these funny messages because, you know, we don't need that anymore. So remove it from this file as well. Remove funny message. Boom. Back to our normal state. Now that we got access to our connect wallet, let's actually see if our connect wallet function works. Meaning if I go down here, I'm already on line 85, I'm already calling my connect wallet function, meaning that when I click that button, my connect wallet function should work. So let's go ahead and see what the heck happens. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click connect wallet. Boom. Look at that. And MetaMask just popped up, you guys. Beautiful. All right. And let's go ahead and choose next here and hit connect. And boom, look at that. It says current account and it's pulling the right account. It knows when it's connecting, it knows exactly how to connect, how to pull that data from there. That's absolutely perfect, right? That's exactly what we're looking for. All right, we're going to create another function that's essentially just going to check if an account is connected, if a wallet is connected. That's all it's going to do. Cool. So let's start building this out now. So I'm going to check if wallet is connected. It's going to be an async function, and it's going to take in a MetaMask if it already exists. And by default, we're going to make it our ETH, whatever we made our ETH at the top. And then I'm going to do a try catch block, and I'm going to say if the MetaMask doesn't exist, just stop and return, please install MetaMask. Otherwise, what I want you to do is go ahead and do a MetaMask request and get the account using the method ETH_accounts. And then just get the account length. So if the account length exists, then basically set the current account to the initial account that we just got. So if we got an array of accounts, we just set it to the first account that we got. It returns it always as an array. Cool. And then we will catch the error and just show the error and throw an exception if we got an error. That's it. That's this function check if wallet is connected. And how we're going to use it is right at the top, we'll write a use effect hook here. So the use effect hook will write it right over here, right? And it will have no dependencies. It will basically run every time the app refreshes or it starts. And all we're going to do is just run this function, check if wallet is connected. That's it. So this will run every time we refresh. So let's go ahead and also write a console log here. And we're just going to say wallet is already connected. All right. This is just for fun. And we're going to write that now. So let's go ahead and refresh here. and you will see it says wallet is already connected. All right. Now, and why does it say that? Well, it's because we've connected our wallet right there, right? So let's go right here and let's check connected sites. Let's remove this localhost, right? And refresh. Boom. Now we don't get that anymore. It doesn't say wallet is already connected anymore. So that's gone now. And what this will do is also check if MetaMask is installed or not. So meaning if I ran this somewhere where MetaMask is not installed, so let's go right here. See, it will say immediately right at the top, please install MetaMask. So it will catch that error right away and throw an error. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to do some conditional rendering over here because I don't want to be connected and for it to still say connect, right? So for example, let's say I go here and I hit connect. Look, it still shows up there. So we're going to do some conditional rendering. All right, so to make this a conditional render, I'm basically going to say, does the current account exist? And if it does, the following should happen. So basically this or that should happen. So in this case, over here, if the account exists, essentially show username. And if it doesn't exist, then show the connect button. That's effectively what we're doing here. So what we need to do is just plug those in. So basically what I want to do is wrap both of these in parens. And then what I want to do is, this is the code for my connect wallet button, right? So I want to take that, I want to cut that. So I'll cut it and I'll go right here, put parentheses and paste it. Boom. So I'm done with the use case of if the current account is not showing up. But what do I do when the current account is logged in? So currently just showing username, right? If I change this with Clever Akazi, it's working. And if I log out, it'll break out. But I still need to add the styling and everything. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and remove Clever Akazi and we're going to do the following. Let's add in a button with a padding. And inside of here, let's add in a button text container. And instead of saying username here, I'll simply just say, not even that, we'll actually just say, like, make it look like a wallet. And let's go here and boom, you can actually see it's showing up. So now that I'm logged in, it shows this. And actually, if I log out, watch what will happen. Connected sites, log out, disconnect, right? And let's refresh and boom, look at that. So that's exactly the feel that we're after, right? Now let's connect again and boom. There we go, address. So perfect. The conditional rendering is working really well. All right, now that we're done with our functionality of adding in a wallet, let's get to work on actually getting our Solidity environment set up, getting hard hat set up, and getting our contract deployed. So it's going to be some awesome stuff. Get pumped, and I'll see you in a second. All right, so now what we're actually going to do is we're going to set up hard hat, and we're going to basically go ahead and do this here. So get out of your client. In your smart contract, we're going to create a new, not a new file, but basically we're going to go inside of your smart contract. So let's back out here. Let's go CD smart contract, just like that. And now here, what we're going to do is we're going to try to use this command that says, so on the hardhat.org/getting started page, right here, I see their command npx hardhat. So let's see if we can run that and if that works. So let's go ahead and try that. npx hardhat. Yes, install the packages. So it looks like it's installing and it's getting stuff up and running. Once that's done, you're going to see that in your smart contract folder, it's actually going to become pretty awesome. So now when you're here, go ahead and choose create a basic simple project, hit enter. For the root, this is the root. So just hit enter. That's all you got to do. All right. Do you want to add a git ignore? Sure, why not? Hit enter. Sure, hit enter. Sure, hit enter. And it will install and add all the dependencies. So for example, hard hat waffle, Ethereum waffle, chai, hard hat ethers, all of that. So let's go ahead and zoom out now. And once this installation is done, we can actually get started working on our smart contract. So you can see that now my folder has, my smart contract is starting to have a bunch of things installed here, right? That's what we're installing right now. Now that we're done, beautiful. Inside here of our contracts, you can see that we have greeter.sol. We're going to rename this contract to be transactions.sol. All right. And because I want to visually, syntactically highlight and use Solidity, I'm just going to go ahead to my extensions by doing Command-Shift-X or just clicking extensions over here, typed in Solidity, and let's go ahead and install Solidity. So that way, if we're writing Solidity code, it can actually like syntax highlight it and make it look real nice. So that's installed. Let's take a look. Yep. Now we're getting some styling at our transactions.sol. We're going to basically make this entire contract empty. All right. And then we're going to start from here. Let's also actually get rid of this as well. And the last bit right over here. So we start off with just Pragma Solidity. So this is just telling it which Solidity version to use. All right, so let's start making our transactions contract. So I'm just going to do Command B and kind of hide that. So you can see full screen. So let's get started on our transactions contract. The event is going to be transfer. It's going to take in an address type, which is going to be sender. Another address will be receiver. So where are you sending it from and who you're sending it to? It's going to take an integer or a uint amount. String message. So the message will just be a string, and then we'll have a uint 256, which will be a timestamp. And then we will have a string keyword. So this is just going to be whatever the keyword is. Cool. Now here's what the function is going to be. So the function is going to be called publish transaction. It's going to take in an address payable. So this is where, so it's going to take in an address. It's going to be type payable and then receiver. We're going to have a uint amount. Payable means you're paying it to the receiver. That's who's going to get paid. We're going to store the message in memory, and we're going to store the keyword in memory as well. And this is going to be a public function. And the event that we're going to emit is transfer. And so we're going to emit the sender, the receiver, amount, message, the timestamp of the block, and then whatever keyword was passed. So in terms of our contract, our Solidity part of it, we're almost done, honestly. It's honestly that simple. We're pretty close to being done. But our contract here is done. Now we're going to work on our deploy script. So let's go here, create a new file called deploy.js, and we'll work on this script together. All right, so let's get started making this function. So I'm going to make a function called main. And then we're going to have transaction factory. This transaction factory is going to await hre.ethers, and it's going to get the transactions from the factory. So basically, the transaction contract, we deploy it, and this allows us to actually like pull it from there. And then what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and deploy that contract. We're going to await the deployed response that we get back. And then we're essentially going to say the transaction, that contract, right, was deployed to this address. This will be the contract address. All right, and then we're going to create a IIFE, which is a immediately invoked functional expression. So this is going to be an async here, an anonymous function. We're calling it immediately, and then it's going to be wrapped in a try-catch block, and I'm going to await the main function. And once it returns, simply just exit without any errors. And if it does return an error, then basically exit with an error. We're going to tell the system something is broken. So in terms of our deployment contract, that is essentially it, and we're done. All right, so now let's go ahead and actually deploy this contract. So what we're going to do is, and by the way, if this code is like, where the heck is this coming from? This code is right there. And we're just using an async await function to return it. You can just copy and paste this as well. Like that should work too. Both work. Now, what we want to do is we want to run this command here, npx hardhat run scripts. So let's go ahead and zoom in here so you can see it. And we're going to go npx hardhat run scripts / and then we want to give it which scripts. We're going to say deploy.js. And then the last thing we actually want to say is, and this is an important bit, we want to actually give it the network flag. And here's the network we want to deploy this to. It's Rinkeby. Oh, one thing I actually did not do for this is let's actually make sure that we compile this. So let's go ahead and let's do npx hardhat compile. So let's do that first. All right, one other thing we have to do is inside of our hardhat config file. Oops, sorry, let's zoom out here. Inside of our hardhat config file right there, we're going to go ahead and just set up a couple of things. So we don't need any of this. Don't need any of this there. So this Solidity contract, Solidity over here. Yep. Okay, cool. Now in here, what I want to do is I want to have networks like so. And here's what networks is going to be. So it's going to be the Rinkeby network, and the URL is going to be this long alchemy string. I'll show you exactly where I got this alchemy URL from. And then I'm going to also need an account, and the account is going to be this long private key. So this is my private key for my MetaMask. So I'll show you first where I got this from. So if I click over here and I go right there, so let's go to one of my burner accounts that I don't care about. And in here, let's click account details right there. And if I click export private key and I type in my password here, as soon as I'm done typing in my password, it'll give me the key. So that's kind of where I'm getting this from. Now, this is another burner wallet that I'm using. So that's where I'm getting the key from. And then this Alchemy URL right here, this I'm getting it from the Alchemy website. So if we go Alchemy API and we hit Alchemy, you can hit get started for free and you can create an account with them. So I'll go ahead, hit create an app. And I'll call this the Uniswap Blockchain app, and we'll go development, and Ethereum is fine. And then we will say ring create app. Here we have our Uniswap Blockchain app. So we can go inside of here. All right. And then I click to view key and it just gave me my URL. So I'm going to copy that. And right here, I'm going to go ahead and paste that URL. So that's all you need to do right there. All right, so now let's go ahead and try that command where we try to deploy to the Rinkeby network, and let's see what happens. So npx hardhat run script /deploy.js, and we're gonna pass it the Rinkeby network. And look at that, now I'm not getting an error anymore. It means it knows which network we're deploying it to. So that's a really, really good sign. And congratulations, it looks like the contract was deployed. It is the transactions contract. So here we use like transactions, .sol contract was deployed to the following address. So let's go ahead and deploy it again. And now you're going to see that it's going to send and show us a different little message on our console log. Just one that's, I think, a little bit nicer, right? Transactions.sol contract deployed to the following address. And if you actually go to that address, you'll be able to see that, yes, indeed, that contract is deployed. All right, with that said, our contract, your very first Solidity contract is now deployed. Congratulations, smash that like button if you're pumped about that. And now we're ready to get back, and this contract that we have now deployed, we're going to interweave it into our next app coming right up. All right, now we're going to add the functionality to be able to send the money. So sending the money. Let's go ahead and start working on that now. All right, so let's start working on sending transactions. So let's create a function called send transaction. It's going to be an asynchronous function. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it the argument MetaMask, which will default to ETH because we were already kind of grabbing that from the global scope of our Chrome, right? Window.eth. Let's also get the connected account or default to the current account. And then we're going to make a try catch block like this. So just a try block, throw try. And let's start filling this out. So basically, if the MetaMask doesn't exist, just return. And then I'm going to destructure address to an amount from the form data. So if you're like, hey, what the heck is this form data? We're going to create this inside of our transaction context. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and create that. Actually, once we're done with this, we're going to go ahead and create the form data. So we'll take care of this right away. All right, the next up, I want to actually get my transaction contract. So I'm going to call my function get Ethereum contract. We're going to create this function as well. So we're going to create this and this function as well. Let's keep going in the meantime. And I'm going to say the parsed amount is whatever I'm getting from Ethers, and I'm going to parse the Ether. I'm going to give it the amount. So what does this mean in big picture view? Well, here's what that means. So this is going to be the address to, and this is going to be the amount. And we're going to be pulling, this is going to be the form data. We're going to pull that form data and destructure it. Okay, so that's kind of what's happening. Then we're going to await the MetaMask request. So MetaMask is going to pop up, and the method that we're going to ask it to use is the send transaction. And the parameters it's going to take are the following. So it's going to be an array of object. From is going to be the current or the connected account. To is going to be who are we sending this money to. Gas, this is just going to be 52,000 GWE gas fees. And then value is going to be whatever the parse amount we got. and then we're going to turn it into hex. Cool. That's going to be the value. Great. Then we're going to wait for the transaction hash, and I'm going to call my transaction contract.publish transaction. This is the contract that I've created. Don't worry, all of this, we're going to get access to it from when we do get Ethereum contract. Okay, so we're going to create that function. But remember, our Solidity contract had a .publish transaction method. And then we're just going to need to pass it the address, the parsed amount, a message. So transferring ETH from this much ETH and sending it over to this account. And then we're going to say that the message, the keyword is transfer in this case. So if you're wondering what is this keyword thing? Well, if I take you to my transaction Sol, you can see that I have keyword right there. Let's go back. And let's keep on working on this. Next up, we're going to await this. So we're going to wait for this entire transaction to actually finish. And what we're going to get back is this is going to, once this finishes, this whole thing will return to us a hash. A hash is just this long string that will encapsulate this entire information. So we're going to await that hash, and then we're going to save that transaction. Okay, so we're going to call our save transaction function, and we're going to pass it all of this information. We're going to catch and console log the error. And then we're going to set is loading to true while we're waiting. And we're going to set is loading to false once we're done waiting for the transaction and we have actually saved it. Cool, let's save. Now, there are a couple of things that we're going to be doing in here. So I'm going to comment this out because save transaction, this is going to be something we're going to be doing with our database. So let's just leave this here for now. And this set is loading. This is going to allow us to put a nice little loader while the transaction is loading. So let's go ahead and make a couple of state variables all the way at the top. So I'm going to go right over here and let's go ahead and create a few new state variables. So I'm going to say const is loading and set is loading, and we're going to set this to false by default. And then we're going to get the form data as well. So I'm going to say const form data, set form data, and we're going to say address to blank in the start, and amount is going to be blank as well, just like this. Let's go ahead and make sure that we actually pass this down here. So I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to pass our send transaction function. So we're going to be passing this function, and we'll now have access to this function inside of our main if we wanted to. Now, one last thing I want to do is handle the change of this form. So what happens when I change things on this form? Let's go ahead and work on that. So I'll create a new function and we'll call it const handle change. And it will take in an event and whatever name you give it. The name is like the attribute that you give it. And what we're going to say is we're going to say set form data, and then it's going to take the previous state. This is some advanced confusing JavaScript, but you'll be fine, just like this. So this is going to be the key. This is a dynamic key that's being created on the fly. And this is basically getting whatever the previous state was. So there's something really weird that most people don't know, but whenever you call these set hooks, by default, you have access to something called previous state or prev state. And it's a really clean way of doing it. And it's like the most robust way of doing it. So look at it kind of at your own risk, but it was a rabbit hole I fell down into. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. But honestly, you don't need to worry too much about it. If you just use it, just get it to work and you should be good. And I'm going to pass this handle change function as well, actually. So let's go inside of our main, and in my main, what I want to do is actually destructure some of this. So I'm going to say const form data, also destructure handle change and send transaction function. And I want you to destructure this from, let's use the use context hook, and we're going to say transaction context. Let's hit, and let's go ahead at the top and make sure we import this. So boom, transaction context from /context/transaction context, just like that. So that will ensure that we're getting access to the form data, the send transaction, and now we simply just have to use these. Before we use them, let's create one more important function. So this is going to be our handle submit function. So handle submit function is going to take in an event. We're going to destructure our address to an amount from the form data. Let's prevent the default. And if the address doesn't exist, then stop. Or the amount doesn't exist, then stop. So if either of these don't exist, just return and don't do anything. Otherwise, send the transaction. So run our function, send transaction, and that's it. So that's essentially it when it comes to the form because we have the handle change, and that's happening right over here as I'm typing in the amount. It's filling out our address to our amount that we're destructuring from form data, and then simply we just send the transaction. So let's give it a try and let's see if anything at all happens. So let's keep an eye out on our console, and let's keep an eye out on our wallet as well. Okay, let's go here, our local host, and refresh. Oh, it says use context is not defined. So let's go ahead, import use context from React. Let's refresh. There we go. All right, we're currently logged in, so our wallet address is right there. And now let's go ahead and try sending some ETH. So here's what I'm gonna do. Which account is a 088? This one, right? Is 0x88. So I'm gonna not, wait, this isn't connected. Let's refresh. Oh, this 0x88 is hard-coded. So let's go ahead and update that so that's not hard-coded anymore. Let's go to header, and we're gonna update this real quick. So inside of header, what I wanna do is create a username state, and then all I'm gonna do is create a use effect hook, just like this, for essentially whenever the current account updates. And then I'm just gonna say set username to, and then we're gonna do this, which essentially basically means, so let's go right there, let's close it out. And this piece of code here essentially means give me the first 7 strings, give me the first 7 letters of that long wallet address, then put ... and then give me from 35 continuing all the way until the end. That's all this means. And then that username will actually just show that wherever I hard coded it, right? So let's look for 0x, and I hard coded it right here. So we're gonna replace this, and we're gonna do username, and let's close that out just like this. Let's close this guy out right there, and boom, look at that. Our wallet address is now showing up. So now I can see which wallet is connected. So it's not this one, it is this one indeed. So I'm gonna send money over to this one. Okay, the React.js blah blah blah. So I'm gonna copy this, and we'll do, let's just check. So if I do 0.1 ETH, this should go from 0.7 to 0.6. So let's go 0.1 ETH. We'll send it to this address, and let's hit confirm. So now we got an error. Cannot read properties of undefined address to. So let's go ahead and handle this error now. Oh, I just realized. Okay, so let's go back into my transaction context, and let's go all the way down. So let's look for form data, right? We're creating it here, but I'm actually never sending that through. So let's go ahead and send that through. Let's go form data. So let's try this again now, one more time. Let's just take a look at our MetaMask here and make sure it's 0.7. So this should go to 0.643. So go paste in our address. Let's hit confirm. And I don't know if anything is happening or not. Get Ethereum contract is not defined. So let's go ahead and fix that. So remember when we said we created get Ethereum contract? Yep, it's time to go ahead and define that now. So let's go all the way to the top level, kind of right here. This is where we're going to start working on it. All right, now right here, we got to do some interesting monkey magic. So let's go ahead and put in this contract address, contract API, and signer. These are the 3 things the transaction contract will take. And then we're just going to return the transaction contract. So we're done with this function. However, you're probably like, what the heck is contract address and contract API? Let's go and get them. And this is where we're going to have to become monkeys and do some weird stuff. But it's not going to be too bad, I promise. So here's what we're going to do. In client, create a new folder called lib. Now, let's go inside of our smart contracts. And in artifacts, you're going to see we have contracts/transactions. So open that up. There's going to be this transactions.json. So we're going to basically copy this file, come back to our client, and come back to our lib, and you're going to paste that exact file right there. So now that we have this file on hand, this is what we're actually going to use in just a second. So inside of lib, we're going to create a new file. It's going to be called constants.js. Constants.js. And in here, I'm going to say import ABI from transactions.json. And if you're wondering what ABI is this whole thing. It's almost like a API, but it's like the contract interface and how the contract works. So we know, for example, the contract has, function, and it has inputs like sender and receiver and amount, which are all int 256, message, which is a string, uint 256, which is a timestamp, keyword, which is a string. It has a transfer event, and then it has another function which has these types of inputs. So this is just like telling you what the underlying interface of your entire app is. So in constants, we're going to get access to that, and we're going to say export const contract ABI is equal to ABI.ABI, just like that. And then we're just going to paste the contract address as well. All right, now for the contract address, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to say export const contract address, and this is going to be the one that you deployed. So that's this one at the bottom right here. So go ahead and copy that. You're going to need it. And we're going to go ahead and make a string and paste that right there. So that's the contract address we're going to need. So now we're done with our constants file. All right, so now all the way at the top of this file, our transaction context, what we're going to do is I'm going to say import contract ABI, comma, contract address. We're going to destructure this from, I'm going to say lib. We don't need this period slash right there. So it's going to be from go back a directory and then into lib and into constants. Okay, and we're going to get our contract ABI and we're going to get our contract address. The next thing we're going to do is import ethers from ethers, just like so. We're going to import our client. So I'll show you how to get our client. Let's actually leave that empty for now. And then that's it. Let's go ahead and hit refresh on this thing. And it can't resolve ethers. No worries. All you got to do is in your client, just do yarn add ethers. So go ahead and install this package. And once it's installed, then go ahead and do yarn dev again. So let's do yarn dev. And we'll hit refresh. And that error should go away pretty soon. Cool. So now we're getting a different type of error. And we're going to go ahead and fix that. So that error is coming from our use effect hook, where we're doing set username. So let's go to our header, and we're basically going to just say if, current account does not exist. So let's just do if current account does not exist, then just return. Let's refresh, and there we go. And then once it does exist, then we use this guy right here. So that'll take care of that little bug that we were having. All right, let's go back to our transaction context. Contract ABI, contract address, right? We're pulling that from that constants file. And now when we go down, okay, let's go and look. Here we're actually getting our contract. So this is a get Ethereum contract. And how it basically works is we call our provider. This provider is just basically giving us a provider. And then we will get the signer. So the signer in this case will be you, the person who's signing that contract. And then what we're going to do is get our transaction contract. So we're going to create a new Ethers contract. We're going to pass it these arguments. We're going to say, hey, this is the specific contract that I want you to get, this one right here. And the contract ABI I want you to use, that pulled out from the constants that we're giving you. And then the signer is going to be you, the signer. So that's like when that modal thing opens up and you click it and sign it, it's going to be pulling that information from you. It's going to be using your private wallet key or something along those lines. And once you sign it, it gives you read or write access. So the write access in this case might be like sending a transaction. So now that we're good with that, let's go ahead and give it a try now. And let's see if anything breaks. So fingers crossed. Let's go full screen here. Let's take a look at our wallet. We're currently at 0.7. If I send 0.1 ETH, we should drop down to 0.6. Let's go and find the address we want to send it to. So this one right here, copy the address, paste, go all the way back, hit confirm. Oh, look at that. MetaMask just popped up. It says sending 0.1 ETH, and the estimated gas fee is the following. Okay, let's hit confirm. And a second one pops up just to confirm that you're good to go. Let's hit confirm and let's see. It's going to take a second, but then once it's done, it's going to be done. So let's go here. Look at that. I'm at 0.6, but currently it's at pending. It just went through successfully, right? It was pending. Now it says it's done. Let's go to our other one. This one, I believe, is up to 0.4 ETH. Or wait, let's give it a second because I don't see a 0.1 ETH here yet. It says that there was a contract interaction, right? But the money has not been sent just yet. This one was 8 hours ago, actually. So this is an old one. All right. But it looks like from this account, the money was sent into the other account. So it did happen. It's probably just not showing up in the activity for whatever reason. Okay. And the amount might not be showing up correctly for whatever reason, but it looks like it did. Our account was at 0.7. Now it is at 0.6. So let's just double check. So this one is 0.4 right now, right? So if I send it, it should go up to 0.5. So let's go ahead and check. So let's send another 0.1 ETH, hit confirm, confirm, and then we'll hit confirm again, confirm. And let's sit here. It says send pending. Let's look at other one. It's currently at 0.4, right? So let's see if it goes up to 0.5. Sending. Now it says sent. And indeed, it has gone up to 0.5. There we go. So now the receive is showing up. Just took a second for it to show up. And if you look on the Block Explorer, you can see that the transaction, one of the transactions happened 2 minutes ago. Here is our transaction hash. And it was confirmed and it's on the blockchain and anybody in the world can actually verify this. Okay, you just put in this transaction hash, hit search, and it will bring you to this exact transaction. Wow, wasn't that nice? So now you are able to actually send money, send Ethereum from your Uniswap app that you just built. How amazing is that? Put that on your portfolio. Put that on a portfolio because it's going to help you get a job. That's my goal. That's our goal, to help all of you get a job from just all this amazing free content. So take advantage of that. And if you like that, go ahead, smash that like button. Right? That was so freaking cool. We made it happen. Smash that like button and let's keep rocking and rolling. All right, now let's get to work on our Sanity backend, our database, because when people come in here, we want to sign them up and have them in our database. When people come in here, because like you don't want to be pulling all this information from blockchain. It's slow as shit, right? It's super slow and it's like terrible. So you would want to have essentially your own backend, pull data from there, record transactions there, and then we want to use that to show the history. So let's get set up with our Sanity database now. Okay, it's a pretty simple process. Let's walk through it. So inside of lib, I'm going to create a new file. We're going to go ahead and call it Sanity client.js, just like this. And I'm going to need access to a few pieces of information. So for example, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into Sanity, and then we're just going to create a new project. And if you've done so, you should have this project already in here. You don't need to actually even do this. Since we did it from the command line a lot earlier, you should have this. So let's go into Uniswap Blockchain app and let's just go into settings. A few things I want to make sure we're good to go in settings are, let's go to API actually. And for cores, let's just add a local host and allow credentials and hit save. So this is basically just like any local host is now part of the cores. So you don't have to get that weird cores error. And inside of here, we're going to do the following. Let's go all the way down to where it says tokens, hit add API token, and you can hit editor, or you could even do this, but editor is fine. And here we're just going to call it our Uniswap blockchain app, chain app. Save. All right, now I'm going to copy this because I'm going to need that. So ignore that code that you just saw. We're going to write that from scratch, but copy this and just put it somewhere for now. We're going to need this token. The second thing we're going to need is this project ID. So copy that. So just copy both of these things. All right, so now let's get to work with our Sanity, right? So here, let's import Sanity client from Sanity client. If you're wondering, hey, what the heck is going on here? Just make sure you go to your command line right here and install Sanity client. So we're going to say yarn add @sanity/client, just like that. So go ahead and install Sanity client. Once that's installed, let's continue. We're going to go ahead and export our client, Sanity client, and it's going to take in an object just like this. Project ID is going to be the project ID that you copied from here. The data set is going to be production. API version is 1. And then for token, you're going to use the token that we copied from here. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And then CDN, just make it false. With that said, in terms of the client side or the setup of Sanity, you should be good. Now let's go inside of our transaction context. That's where we're going to create a function that adds our database. So remember the save transaction function. This is our Sanity function that allows us to write to the database. So we're going to now work on this function. All right, so let's create this function now. So it's going to be called save transaction. It's going to be an async function. And then it's going to basically have a couple of arguments that we're going to put right over here. And then this is going to be our block where we're going to write all of the code for it. Okay, so it's going to take in a transaction hash. It's going to take in an amount. It's going to take in a from address, which by default is going to be the current account. And it's going to take in a to address. Where are you sending this money to? And then we're going to do the following. All right, so we are going to create a constant. It's going to be called transaction doc. Okay, it's going to have the type of transactions. The ID of it is going to be the transaction hash, because remember, each transaction hash is going to be absolutely unique. It's going to have a from address and a to address. And then the timestamp is going to be the current time, and it's going to need to be an ISO string. Transaction hash is going to be whatever the transaction hash is, and then the amount, we're going to just call parse float on that and pass in the amount. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create this transaction if it does not exist. What does that mean? So if I take you to our Sanity account here, if that transaction does not exist, it's going to create it here. Do I have one? Yeah, so this is a good one to use. So if the transaction does not exist, it's going to create it here. So that's what this line is going to do. And it's a really nice way that it does it, because it can look for any duplicates. And honestly, it's even easier than Firebase in my opinion. And then what we're going to do is basically we're going to await the client and we're going to say, hey, patch, we want you to patch this. So what we're doing now is we want to link. So whatever this transaction is, we want to go to the user now and link that particular transaction to a given user. In this case, my 0x88 user, right? Because I believe that's the wallet. No, I'm using the 0x22. So we want to link it to this user right here. So then you should be able to go into that user and see a bunch of the transactions. So we're going to patch. We're going to give it the current account, because patch is looking for an ID. And in this case, the ID is just the account address. And if missing, we're going to just set the transactions to kind of this empty array. And then what we're going to do is we're going to insert after. So this is essentially append to the array of transactions. And the last argument is going to be an array of object. And for the key, we're going to give it the transaction hash. For reference, we're going to give it the transaction hash. And the type is going to be reference. What does that mean? Well, when I go in here, right, this field right here is a reference field, because I can click it and it references a particular transaction. So that's why this is a string field. This is a string field. This is a transaction. Sorry, this is a reference field. Last but not least, we're going to then call .commit and then just return out of the function. So .commit, meaning that, yes, I want to write all of this, and then I want to commit this to the database, aka update the database with this info. Let's go ahead and open up I'm going to go back and I'm going to go CD into Studio. I'm just going to say Studio start, or sorry, let's go Sanity start, just like that. So then our localhost 3000 should be up and running pretty soon as a result of that. Or sorry, let's go right here. Our localhost 3333 will start running with our Sanity database. So let's hit enter. And now this should be up and running. So if we create any transactions, they will pop up here. Last but not least, we just need to go to our function right here and uncomment out this chunk of code right there. This is our send transaction function. So we wanted to not only send the transaction, but also save the transaction inside of our database. So let's go ahead and make a transaction now. We'll make it pretty small, like 0.01 ETH. And we will hit confirm. And let's hit confirm on this. And let's see how quickly it actually shows up in our Sanity database. So let's go right there. And let's also check if it's sent out of our account. So let's go here, interaction 2257. So this is indeed the one that we're looking at. So it looks like it took place. Let's refresh. Nothing in here yet. Interesting. So let's keep an eye out for this. Oh, wow. I'm not very smart. Why that did not work is actually, I never started my server. I didn't do yarn dev. I was here debugging like what the heck just happened. Okay, cool. Got it. So basically, don't be an idiot like me and you won't run into any problems. So wallet is connected. Now let's go ahead and try it. So let's go 0.01. Paste the wallet address. So let's go, I'll grab this wallet address. This should go up to 5.8. Let's confirm this transaction. Sending. Looks like it's sent. This went up to 5.8. Did we run into any errors? Client is not defined. I know what that error is about. I never imported client from the top. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to say import client from lib sanity client. That's it. Let's try one more time. 0.01, paste, confirm, confirm. And now let's wait. Hopefully this time it'll work. So waiting. Let's take a look here. I didn't get any errors yet. We did go down by 1. We had a cores blocked. Interesting. So even though I said don't block this, but it looks like it blocked it. So let's go here. And let's add origin and let's just put HTTP localhost like that. Let's hit save. Interesting, because this is not HTTPS, it's HTTP. So just make sure that in your Sanity personal projects under API, you go right here and add it in cores. Now let's try this again. Let's hit confirm, confirm. So this is how you debug. You know, this is real life. Like you get an error, debug it. Look at the error message, debug it, and then you just keep doing. I know it didn't get in because there's an error on the post method. So we automatically know what happened there. Now let's go ahead and look here. Now we're at 5.0 and we just got a message. Ooh, this time we got an error message from Sanity. So let's go ahead and look. And there is a transaction, the transaction hash, and let's see how much was sent. From wallet address looks correct, right? To wallet address looks correct. The amount looks correct. And guess what? It's right now where I'm located, 11:12. And this is 11:12 p.m. It's 23 on the 24-hour clock. It's 23:12. So fantastic. All right. We were able to actually add it correctly. And now let's see, are there any users? There are no users. So now what we're going to need to do is go ahead and make a way where Sanity actually stores our users upon login. So let's work on that now. All right, so let's go inside of our transaction context, and I'm going to create another use effect hook. And basically what I'm going to make a function that essentially creates a user profile in Sanity if it doesn't exist. And so basically here's how we're going to do this. Let's create a use effect hook, and it will update and fire off whenever the current account is detected or updated or changed or whatever. And basically, here's what we're going to do. If the account doesn't exist, then just return. And then otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to just run a immediately invoked functional expression. And it's going to be an async function. And here's what it's going to do. So this over here means it's going to call itself immediately. And so we're going to create a user doc. It's going to have type of users. The ID is going to be the current account. So meaning the wallet address is going to be the ID. Username is just going to be unnamed by default. And then the address is going to be the current account. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to create if the user does not exist. That is it. That is it. So with that, maybe in my Sanity, if I go into users, I should have pretty soon unnamed user. And there you go, right? If I go into users, I already have a user that says 0x22. It just got created right now. And when I go into it, it says the username is unnamed, right? If I wanted to name this something else, it could do that, but it will only work if the user does not exist. So if I go in from a new user account, let's log out of here actually. So I'm going to click here and connected sites, and we will disconnect, and we will connect with our React.js December 11th one. So I will go and refresh. The connect wallet button should pop up. Let's go ahead, hit next and connect. And when we go inside of our Sanity, we now have a new user in real time. You guys saw how quickly that updated. I didn't have to refresh or anything. And here we go, 0x88 unnamed. And when I go back here, 0x88. Okay. So now users are being created. So when we go to the save transaction part of our code, now this patch thing will actually work. Why? Because they're actual users now. We have actual valid account addresses. We didn't have them before. So now it'll be able to go into this or 0x88 and update it. So let's check it out. Let's see if it's working or not. So now I'm going to send this to my CP admin one. So I'm going to copy the wallet address. We'll say send 0.01 ETH to this address. Let's hit confirm. And this will show up in Sanity very, very quickly. Let's hit confirm. Now let's go inside of our Sanity and just wait for one of these transactions to pop up. It should pop up fairly quickly here. Let's just look inside of our MetaMask. Oh, it was waiting for one more confirmation. So let's go ahead and confirm that as well. Confirm. Let's check our, yep, it just went up. Let's refresh here. It'll probably take a second for the transaction to fully show up. There we go. It showed up in real time, 0x115. I can click inside of here and go, and I can see it was sent from this wallet address to this wallet address, 0.1, and this was the timestamp. Let's go inside of users now, and here's the interesting part. So we should be able to go inside of this user and see that they have sent other transactions. Let's go, 0x88, and indeed, they are linked to this transaction. If this user sends another transaction, so let's do confirm again, you will now have 2 transactions popping up for this user. Let's hit confirm here. So we've double confirmed, and now you'll see 2 transactions pop up for this user here. Let's just make sure that it has gone through successfully, and ta-da, right there, in real freaking time, it updated, right? How cool was that? So if you thought that was cool, smash that freaking like button. We got Sanity to work. We got our database working, and now with our database working, we're pretty much done with majority of the functionality. All we got to do now is kind of the last piece of the puzzle, which is we want our transaction history to actually pop up. And so it's the history that shows up at the bottom when I was demoing the app earlier. So there you go. This history right there, all of the transactions, and you can even click them and it can show you, it can allow you to view it on Etherscan. So let's go ahead and make that component work now. All right, so now we're going to create a new component and we're going to call this transaction history. So let's go ahead and do that, transaction history.js. All right, let's just get set up with all the boilerplate stuff we're going to need. So let's get useEffect and useState from React. Let's get our client from Sanity client. Let's get our use context from React as well. Let's get our transaction context from our context library or our context file that we created. Let's get our image and our ETH logo. We're going to get a icon from our React icons. And then we're just going to, boom, get updated with all of the styling. So again, I'll go right there so you can kind of see all of the styling. If you want to pause it, you can. But this is all of the styling for this page, and we'll go through the styling afterwards as well. All right, so let's build out our transaction history function. And basically, we're going to destructure is loading in current account from the transaction context. In order to do that, let's just go to transaction context. And let's just pass through is loading. So now it's going to be this global state that we're going to see throughout the entire app. Let's go back to transaction history. And let's keep working on this. So I'm going to make a transaction history state variable. and set transaction history. And then we're going to use a use effect. And again, let's call it IIFE, and immediately invoked functional expression. Okay. And then we're going to say if it's not loading, okay, then and we have the current account. So if both of these are true, then I want you to create the following query. If the type of the document is users and the ID is the current address, which means this literally just means get that specific user or that specific user based on whatever the wallet is. That's all that means. So this means go inside of users type, and then for ID matching this, it means go get this guy or that guy. What I want to do is return to me the transaction list, and only return to me amount, to address, timestamp, and transaction hash. I don't want you to return anything else. And I want you to order these by timestamp descending, and then just get me the last four. We're going to await that query that we just created. This query right here that we just created, we're going to await and get that back and store it in client client response. And then we're just going to set our transaction history to the 0th item that we get back from it. And then we're just going to do 0th item.transaction list. So what does this mean? This means that it's going to get me this person's entire transaction list, this entire thing, but ordered by descending. So their most recent ones are going to be all the way at the top. And don't forget to call that function. So we created this immediately invoked functional expressions. You do have to put that semicolon there. It's actually important. And then just call this function. And then we're going to have is loading and current account. So whenever these change, this should fire off. And then here's the following that we want to return. So we're going to create a wrapper. Inside of that wrapper, we're going to create a div, and we're going to say if the transaction history exists, then show it. Okay, that's all. And here's how we're going to show it. We're going to go through the transaction history and map through it. And I want you to put the logo. So just so you can see and follow along what's happening here is, let's go to our finished one. That's this logo right there, the ETH logo. This over here is the same thing as that amount plus that space right over there. Okay, these are equivalent. Then we're going to create a span tag for the address, because remember, we want to style it inline but make it orange like this. So we're going to say transaction.toAddress substring, and then we're going to go 0 to 6. That means just get me a few, and then put 3 dots there. We're going to put a space after it, and then we're going to say on, and then put another space after that. We're going to get our timestamp, and we're going to say basically get us a new date, which is going to be the transaction timestamp. Put it in locale string. So we want to turn it into February. We want to take that ugly date and timestamp that we get, and we want to turn it into this beautiful thing that says February 8, 2022 at 2:28 p.m. So how do we do that? Well, to this locale string, just pass in an object, and in that object, pass it time zone PST, hour 12 true instead of hour 24, time style short, and date style long. Okay, beautiful. And then we're going to pass it our Etherscan link. So how we're going to pass it is we're going to create the A tag, and it's going to be a template string of rinkeby.etherscan.io /tx/ give it the hash. So when you click and open that, it'll just take you to that exact transaction hash. Target is going to be blank that way and no refer. So it actually takes you to a new tab, and that tab has no refer. Class name is this is going to be the styling we're pulling from the Etherscan link. It's going to say view on Etherscan, and it's going to give you an error up just like that. And last but not least, we're going to export this transaction history function or this transaction history component. So that's it. Now all we got to do is just show this transaction history. And where we can do that is, let's go to our, not app, but let's go to our index. And here, instead of H2 transaction history, we're going to say transaction history. Just like this. As you saw, it did not autocomplete. Transaction history from component / transaction history. Now it has autocompleted. Let's go to our app, and ta-da! Look at that. All of them are showing up just like we expected, right? Let's go inside of our transaction history. And let's say we want to change something, right? So let's go ahead and mess with the styling. So let's go ahead and remove the styling for this. And you can see that now it's not blue anymore. So flex item center text blue right there. If I remove this, this removes the margin. So those get too close to each other. If for the to address, I remove this, notice that the true address isn't that like orange color or that gold color anymore. For details, if I remove this, you can see how that messes it up, right? Transaction history item, if I remove this, it completely messes up, right? And this gives me the background color. This rounded LG gives me my rounded corners that look nice. These are my padding, horizontal and vertical. So if I remove this, there's no padding anymore. It looks way too squished. This is my margin on the y-axis. All right, so I recommend you play along with it like that too and see what does what. And you'll start getting what the styling is doing. So with that said, I can see all of these transactions. Now let's go ahead and send 0.1 ETH to this address. And let's hit confirm. And let's actually see if it shows up or not. So I'll hit confirm. And I'm sure it'll take a second. But once it's done, it should actually show up at the bottom. Because once this transaction goes through here, it uploads that to our Sanity. And then from Sanity, I'll pull it down here. I think it went through. Boom, look at that. Updated in real time. And it shows up right away. I didn't refresh. I did not do anything. And you saw that it updated and showed up in real time. So freaking beautiful. Says it happened at 11:43 p.m. Look at my exact time. It's 11:43 p.m. And if I view this on Etherscan, it says it's indexing. So pretty soon it will say success. Just like if I look at any of these old ones, it says success. So this will only say success once it goes through and mines this block. Beautiful. All right, so we are done with our transaction history. Now, next up, we're going to be working on adding our modal. So when we're waiting for our transaction, we can see a nice modal that's spinning in a circle that tells us that our transaction is taking place. So let's go ahead and work on that. All right, so when it comes to the modal, what we want to do is when the loading is happening, that's when we want to trigger it. So let's do this. Let's go to our transaction context file. And inside of our transaction context, let's actually start working on the modal. So here we go. So this is a function that's going to trigger the loading modal. It's going to be a use effect hook. The dependency is going to be is loading. And if the loading is true, then what I want you to do is push this to the URL. So basically change the URL to something like question mark, and we'll say loading, and then we'll say equals to whatever the current account address is. So 0x88, B84, blah, 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 whatever, right? So just do that to the URL, please. Otherwise, just push the home address, and yeah, that's totally fine. Now, we don't know what the router is, so let's go ahead and use the router. So we're going to have to go all the way to the top and import a router, and then we're going to have to make sure that we use the router. So inside of our component transaction provider, let's go ahead and use the router. So we're going to go like this, router, use router. So while the transaction is happening, simply change this URL. And then once the transaction is done, so if loading is completed, then we're going to go ahead and push this, meaning that we're going to push it to the home page. So we're going to remove that URL. So this URL is a hack that you have to do with Next.js in order to pop up a modal. Now let's go to main, I believe, and let's add in our modal. Or actually, yeah. All right, so we're going to import modal from React modal. So let's go down here and paste it. And let's go into our client, and we're going to go ahead and install that. So we're just going to say yarn add react-modal. That should have installed our modal. That's all. So React modal should be good to go. We are going to also import use router because we're going to need to do that. And here's a little React thing we're going to do, a next thing that we're going to do, which is we're going to grab the modal and set app element to hashtag ____ next, just like that. Then let's go ahead and right above main, we're going to start adding our custom styles for the modal. So Basically, it's going to be an object. We're going to give it content as one of the keys, and that's also going to be an object. And we're going to center the modal so it opens up in the middle of the screen. We're going to give it a background color that's going to be dark, padding of 0 and no borders. And then overlay, meaning what the background is going to be, is we're going to give the background a dark color. So that way the modal kind of pops out over everything else. We're going to go all the way to the bottom. And right before this closes, we're going to actually add in our modal. All right, so basically let's create our modal. And for is open, we're basically going to say is open is going to take in true or false. And we're going to just basically say, hey, check if we have loading in our URL parameters. And if we do, then what I want you to do is just show it, right? Like open the modal based on that. And then for style, we're going to give it custom styles. And then we're going to add in this loader. So this loader, I'm going to comment it out for now by doing command /. Now it's saying, hey, I don't know what this router thing is. No worries. So we're going to go up to the top of our main function. And right underneath here, we're going to create our router. We're going to just use the router. So once I make a transaction, once my transaction starts, it will pop up my modal. Let's hit confirm, confirm. So once is loading is set to true, you're going to see the modal is going to pop up. Hopefully it works. Fingers crossed. There we go. The modal is there. You see the background is now like this dark color. So the modal is there. We need to actually like style it more so we can show it up on the screen, but you can see the screen is dark. Once the transaction is complete, you'll see the screen won't be dark anymore. And boom, we just got the transaction to show up right there. So it is working. Now we just need to make the transaction loader work. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna add in my import statement right now. I know it's gonna break the app, but and I'm gonna uncomment this out. Let's go into and create a new component here. And I'm gonna call that transaction loader.js, just like this. And let's go ahead and start working on it now. All right, so inside of our transaction loader, I'm gonna import CSS from emotion/React, and I'm gonna import moonloader from React Spinners. So we have to actually install both of these libraries. Okay, so make sure you're in your client folder, and let's do yarn add emotion/React. And then once that's installed, we're going to do yarn add React Spinners. Now let's zoom out and let's get to work. So we're going to create a style for this. I'll full screen this so you can see my style and you can copy it. So we got a style for our wrapper and for our title. We're going to do a little CSS override. So display block, margin 0 auto, and then border color white. And then here, now we're going to work on our transaction loader component. Let's also export it at the bottom here. And then let's return the following. So I'm going to return a div. That div is going to contain this title, which is going to say transaction in progress. And then we're just going to have the moon loader show up. We're going to have it as a color white. Loading state is going to be true. And then CSS override, we're going to pass in our CSS override, size 50. So let's go ahead and do a refresh and let's check it out now. So I'm going to send over 0.01 ETH. Let's just do 0.2. Let's hit confirm. Confirm here. Let's hit confirm again. Boom! Look at that. Our modal is now popping up and this transaction will show up at the bottom. Guys, if you think this is freaking cool, break that like button, smash that like button. Let's get this video past 3,000 likes. On OpenSea, our last build, we broke 3,000 likes. Let's do that here too. Here we go, 0.02. Let's go to our sanity. Let's check if this is showing up. If this user has 5 transactions. Yes, this user indeed does have 5 transactions. And you can see it's for 0.02 ETH. Wow, fantastic. Let's check it on Etherscan. It's currently indexing. Let's look at the last one. That one is success. Beautiful. So we are done with the transaction loader. Now, guys, we just have one last thing left, which is we just got to go ahead and deploy this app. So let's get to work on deploying this app right now. All right, so let's deploy the heck out of this app. Let's go. At this point, all we need to do is actually just deploy our client. So make sure that you're inside of the client. Okay, that's what we need to deploy. client already has access to the smart contract inside of the lib and also has access to Sanity client. So everything we need should already be in this client folder. So now inside of this client, I'm just going to type in and just do Vercel. Usually that's the only command you need. And we're going to say setup and deploy. I'll hit enter, do it to Clever Programmer. Link to an existing project. Nope. What's your project name? Project name is Uniswap Blockchain YouTube. Why not? Where's your code located? It's located right here. It's setting up the project. I don't need to override anything. And let's just go through this. So we'll now wait and see if actually the deployment takes. Fingers crossed. Boom! Look at that. Our deployment just got completed over here. It says production link is there. So let's check it out if it's working. Yo, what the heck? Look at that. It is deployed. You can see the URL right here. Guys, if you're watching this right now, smash that like button, drop some love, drop it in the comments, take a screenshot, share it on Twitter, tag me. Guys, let's get this freaking hyped up because this is crazy. We did 3 builds in 3 weeks. I mean, we're on fire. And this is a URL. So unless something is broken, you should be able to type in that URL and go and check out this app. Now, here's one last piece of the puzzle. When I go through this transaction, it will not save inside of Sanity. So we need to get past the CORS error. So let's go ahead inside of Sanity here. Let's go in the personal project, add CORS, paste in that URL, hit allow credentials, hit save. So now we should be safe with the CORS error. And I'm going to go ahead and do, let's connect wallet. Let's see if that works. Popped up. That's a good sign. Let's go here. Let's hit connect. Ooh, very good sign. Looks like it connected properly. Let's get the address of the other wallet we want to send stuff to. So this one here, grab the address and we will send over 0.1 ETH. Let's put in the address. Let's hit confirm. All right. And let's see what the heck happens. MetaMask popped up. Hey, that's good news. Okay, this popped up. Let's hit confirm. Yo, the loader popped up. Waiting. If it succeeds, is the transaction history at the bottom going to pop up? Let's look out. Let's see. Moment of truth. Oh, snap, son. It popped up. This is beautiful. And you can view it on Etherscan. Guys, if you thought that was freaking awesome, show some love, drop some fire. Let me know you enjoyed it. I mean, we just grinded through and worked right through it. We worked our faces off, but it is done. The app is completed and we did everything, right? I can click pool, I can click swap and click everything. It changes it, right? I can log in, I can log out, I can send however much ETH that I want. The front end looks beautiful. We have a transaction history here. It's connecting to my Sanity. So if I go inside here, I can see that I just made this transaction and this transaction was made at 12:17 a.m. as I can see here for the amount of 0.1. And that, on my deployed version, it's showing up right there. If for whatever reason in my database, I change this to 0.2, that's what would show up here. So if I refresh, this just changed to 0.2. So we know that it's working with our backend. Our blockchain part is working. Our front end with Next.js is looking beautiful. Guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. This was Uniswap Blockchain Web 3.0 app. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel because this is the channel where we're going to show you how to become an amazing front end, back end, and blockchain developer. So that's it. Show some love, share it with every single person This takes so much freaking time and effort. Tag me on Twitter and, let me know what was maybe the biggest lesson you learned, and make sure to put your real wallet address because I'll be sending one of you $100 through Ethereum. So don't miss out on that. Tag me. It's free money. And follow me on Twitter. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting there. Whew. We did it. We did it. All right. Now, with that said, if you want to see how I built OpenSea, because that was amazing. It was absolutely mind-blowing how I did that. It's one of the sexiest builds. go ahead. It's right here. Go ahead and watch that right now before you sign out, before you do anything else. Click that. Go watch OpenSea. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Watch OpenSea. Go do it.